Luis, is you win 2 and you're in. Both of these teams won their first match, so the winner of this round is going to advance to our top 8. Now we've got 2 big hitters here. We've got our defending champs, Italy, versus Panama, looking to make it into the top 8. Let's find out who's going to make it in. Hello and welcome to coverage of the World Magic Cup. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Luis Scott Vargas, and we are down the stretch on day 2 here. We're in pool play. This is the second pool of the day. And what this means is the first time you get 2 wins in your pool, you're into the top 8. Now, both of these teams already have 1 win. We've got Italy versus Panama lined up. Italy, of course, are defending champions as well. And we're going to start off on table C. On table C here, Luis, we've got Andrea Mengucci versus Sal Alvarado, Bant Eldrazi for Sal, and Ad Nauseam for Andrea. Now, these also happen to be the team captains for both of these teams. Can you run us through what these decks are trying to do? Let's start with Bant Eldrazi.
Bant Eldrazi is really just trying to take advantage of Eldrazi Temple. Its ability to tap for 2 mana to play an Eldrazi means you get to play cards like Thought Knot Seer, Reality Smasher, Drowner of Hope, and Eldrazi Displacer for discounted rates, at which point those cards become very good.
Okay.
And it's basically just built to maximize that. So it's a mid-range deck. It's got a lot of 3 to 5 mana spells, big creatures, and not that many ways to disrupt the opponent.
All right, you can see an Ancient Stirrings on the stack for Sal. Now, on the other side of the table, Andrea Mengucci's playing, he's playing a little bit of an offbeat deck here. He's playing Ad Nauseam.
So what Andrea's deck it's actually his teammate's deck. Alessandro Casamenti is actually the Ad Nauseam master. You'll see him over Andrea's shoulder, but you rotate players in and out here. So this deck is trying to combine Ad Nauseam with an effect like Angel's Grace or Phyrexian Unlife, and what that lets you do is draw your whole deck. Because you can just keep flipping cards, go to negative 70 life. Once you have every card in your deck in your hand, you can win off of Lightning Storm or Laboratory Maniac.
Okay. You can see he's starting to get things moving right now. Taking a look at his teammate Alessandro there to help guide him through. This is, of course, a team competition, and you are allowed to help out your teammates. You still have to play the game at a pace that will allow you to finish it, but you can consult for sure.
And so even though Andrea, notice he didn't play a second land, the fact that he's got 2 Lotus Blooms means that he'll have plenty of mana, and that's one of the hard parts for the Ad Nauseam deck sometimes, is that because its combo costs 6 mana if you play Angel's Grace plus Ad Nauseam, or 5 mana just play Ad Nauseam once you have Unlife in play. That means that you sometimes are a little bit slower, but having Lotus Bloom suspended against not a very fast draw from Bant Eldrazi means Andrea's going to have the mana. The question is, will he have the combo?
Yeah, this is just kind of a miserable draw from the Bant deck, right? Spellskite?
Yeah, Spellskite, no Eldrazi Temple. Spellskite can pressure Lightning Storm, but
okay.
You can continue to retarget Lightning Storm. Also, Andrea is going to be able to win with Laboratory Maniac, because once he has no cards in his deck, he can play Maniac and then play one of his various draw card effects.
Right, he's got plenty of those. We've seen him go through a few of those already here in the early stages. A pair of Sleight of Hands and a Serum Visions in his graveyard. Sal with land number 3 means Eldrazi Displacer or Sky Spawner are available for him. And he's going to go for the Sky Spawner, which is going to act as a threat, but also get him a Scion so that he could cast Reality Smasher next turn. Tick-tock. So Lotus Bloom is going to go off of Suspend and onto the stack. It's going to resolve. Andrea has plenty of mana to work with, strangely, right? He's got 1 island, yet he could make 3, 4, 5, 6 different mana, including 2 red plus 3 of any other color and a blue.
And Andrea kept a handful of Sleight of Hands and Serum Visions, but just hasn't gotten to a point where he's able to find any other lands. Or an Ad Nauseam, who's really missing his Ad Nauseam.
The Pentad Prism's going to net him more mana. He's going to use one of his Simian Spirit Guides to increase the sunburst on that to 2, and then immediately tick it down to play another Serum Visions. Look at his graveyard. He is sifted through his library.
And now he has to decide whether he wants to keep another Serum Visions or just put it on the bottom. And he's got enough mana that keeping it allows him to just see more cards for trying to find Ad Nauseam. He's got a couple turns here.
Yeah, still at a nice 20 life here is Andrea Mengucci. Also, next turn he has the other Lotus Bloom as well. Now, if there's a land drop here for Saul, we may just see the Reality Smasher, but it looks like that's not the case. He's going to attack for 3, and instead of a Reality Smasher, since looks like he's missing his land drop, he's going to go for Thought-Knot Seer.
Yeah, it's one of the few ways Saul has to disrupt Andrea, and so Andrea can let Thought-Knot resolve. He also has the option of using Pact of Negation, and then you can cast Angel's Grace to prevent yourself from dying to Pact of Negation.
Yeah, he's got an extra copy of Angel's Grace in his hand as well, so he probably wouldn't hate that.
Yeah, so then you end up trading 2 cards for Thought-Knot instead of letting it just take 1, but your opponent doesn't have a 4/4 in play. And again, Andrea has a lot of mana. He's got a lot of redundancy in his hand. He's missing an Ad Nauseam. The Thought-Knot's going to take something either way, but Andrea will still have enough action to cast Ad Nauseam even if Thought-Knot, whether it resolves or not.
Yeah, this makes a lot of sense, though, right? Like, he also keeps a 4/4 off the battlefield, and it's a Bant deck. He can't expect to see much more hand disruption outside of Thought-Knot Seer.
And so Andrea essentially built his own Force of Will here.
Yep. Discarding a white card, as it were. He saved a life.
Yeah, that he did.
Way better than
He had to pay a mana,
Force of
though.
Will. That's true. Yeah, that was
on the next turn.
That's a little tough. Yeah. All right, so there's that Serum Visions that you were talking about before, letting him dig further and further into his library. Off the top, another Lotus Bloom, not really what he wants to see, and then a pair of lands. I'm assuming he doesn't want those either.
No, it's a funny position to be on 1 land and scrying lands to the bottom,
Yeah.
but Andrea has 6 mana off just the 2 Lotuses. Again, he will be fine if he draws Ad Nauseam. He doesn't have infinite time. If Saul draws a Eldrazi Temple here and can play Reality Smasher, that's going to cut down on Andrea's turn significantly. If not, though, that Eldrazi Sky Spawner is really not doing that much damage.
Looks like another Sky Spawner here for Saul Alvarado. Andrea Mengucci has had plenty of time. Very slow start from Saul in the early stages. He's kind of picked things up a bit here, but even then, this turn, not exactly explosive. Let's see if he can find that Ad Nauseam. If he does find it, which, by the way, he didn't here, is it just game?
Yeah, it would be game this turn, presumably. The coolest kill that we've heard about with this deck so far is have Lab Maniac in play, cast Angel's Grace, then cast Spoils of the Vault, so you then name a card that's not in your deck. It just exiles your entire deck, and then so you can win with Lab Maniac.
That is pretty sweet.
All right, so Andrea might just have 1 turn here. At least he'll be dead in a turn, but one of the cool things about the Ad Nauseam deck is that between Phyrexian Unlife and Angel's Grace, it can actually keep itself alive a few extra turns. Usually when you're in that position, you are really just delaying the inevitable because you're not actually making any progress, and
you're using those to stay alive rather than
you
win.
Eventually you use up your combo pieces, so then you can't win. But there are times certainly when that's just not gonna that extra turn is gonna be enough.
Yeah, this is a huge swing here, 9 damage from Sal Alvarado, and he's just top decking Mengucci. Oh, and he hit it! Ad Nauseam off the top of his library. Wow, the last turn he had to hit it too. He's even got the Angel's Grace. We said it last turn. If he had drawn it, he would win. It looks like he's going to here. Oh, man.
And this is where it's excellent having the resources of your teammate, because Andrea, if there's any interactions or anything that he's unsure about, he can just ask Casamenti.
Yeah, that's right. And this is going to be here. I'd like to draw this.
Yeah.
Now, so he's actually just put the deck in front of Saul Alvarado, I guess just showing him, hey, I've got the pieces that I need to win this game, and he's going to earn the handshake with that. Wow, very last moment for Team Italy. Picks up game 1. Jeez, a flair for the dramatic there from Andrea Mengucci, but he does get the job done. And he just looks over very casually. Yeah, that's why I played all those Serum Visions, right?
Yeah. I mean, he put a bunch of cards on the bottom of his library between Serum Vision and Sleight of Hand. So
Did you see that look from Alessandro?
Oh, yeah.
Gave him the little okay, well, let's not cut it that close next time. All right, that is going to do it for that first game. We'll be back right after these messages.
Check out Kaladesh Draft Leagues on Magic Online. Build a deck at your own pace and play at your convenience. Draft anytime, play anytime. For more information, visit mtgo.com. Up your game with Ultra Pro Magic the Gathering accessories. Find the best Magic art on card sleeves, deck boxes, playmats, and more. Visit ultrapro.com to learn more and find a retailer near you.
Welcome back to the feature match area here at the World Magic Cup. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe with Luis Scott Vargas. We're bringing you round 2 of this last round of pod play here. We were actually going to watch Affinity versus Infect, but Mattia Ricci had other plans picking up that first game for Italy. That's 2 of the 3 games already going to Team Italy here. That brings us, of course, to our middle table where we've got 2 kind of, again, a little more on the fringe type decks here, Luis. We've got Manuel Sucari playing Blue-Red Kiln Fiend against Alessandro Potaro, who's on Lantern Control. What are these decks trying to do?
The Kiln Fiend deck is trying to get one of these 2 creatures you see in play, Thing in the Ice that flips into Awoken Horror or Kiln Fiend, and then just string together spells like Gataxian Probe, Mutagenic Growth, and eventually Temur Battle Rage to deal just massive amounts of damage. Unfortunately for that deck, the Lantern deck's also doing what it's trying to do, which is get Ensnaring Bridge out, that it prevents creatures from attacking if their power is greater than the number of cards in your hand, and then get out Lantern of Insight plus a combo of either Codex Shredder, Ghoul Caller's Bell, or Pyxis of Pandemonium, which lets Alessandro, playing Lantern, control the draw steps of his opponent every turn. So, at this point, Alessandro actually does have the lock. He's got Ensnaring Bridge out, he's got Lantern plus a Codex Shredder. It's going to be very hard for Manuel to figure out a way out of this because Alessandro is going to be able to just continually mess with Manuel's draw step. Like every time Manuel sees something that would get him out of this, Alessandro can take it.
Yeah, when you look at the life totals here, Alessandro Potaro's at 7. And he is playing against an aggressive red-based deck with 4 Lightning Bolts, for example, in the main deck. But like you said, the number of cards, and this is the thing that I find fascinating about this Lantern Control deck, is you look at the snapshot of the entire deck at the beginning of the game, right? And you take away, say, the basic lands or the lands. And then you look at everything else that matters. as far as getting your opponent dead. And each of the cards that Alessandro Pitaro plays starts to eliminate swaths of cards. For example, the Ensnaring Bridge, all your creatures, they don't matter anymore. Those are just useless at this point. And you can see that he's got a couple of pithy needles at the top, which are shutting off something as well. And each of those just cuts down and cuts down and cuts down. And as long as Alessandro understands which cards actually matter, he can mill those ones away when they pop up, and it's just a stranglehold that's hard to get out of for Manuel Sakari here.
Man, Lantern's a tough deck to play. I actually talked to Alessandro before the tournament started. He's like, yeah, I practice Lantern a lot, even though I'm not as good with it as my other teammates are with their decks. But he was like, yeah, I can play Lantern. And one of the big additions from Kaladesh is actually the land that Alessandro played last turn, Inventor's Fair, because that lets you find whatever pieces you're missing, as well as gaining you a life a turn, which can get you out of burn range here.
Here's Collective Brutality from Alessandro Pitaro. And I think he just drained there.
Yeah, that puts him out of triple bolt range. And now, because he's got a Crucible Worlds, he can go tutor with Inventor's Fair and then bring it back with Crucible. In fact, that's how he brought it back the first time.
I see. Wow, yeah, so the lock is firmly in place here for Alessandro. You know, he does only have the one Codex Shredder to go with the Lantern, but it just seems like he has so many of the avenues already cut off that it's going to be, I wouldn't say impossible, but nearly impossible for Manuel to come out of this, right?
That's the problem from Manuel's side, is that it's not actually impossible.
Right.
You could hit like 5 action cards in a row, but you're probably not going to. So you play on, but Alessandro's going to be patient. He's going to let you draw that mountain. He's going to mill you only when it's a card that will stop him from winning. So it's really tough to kind of play out the end of these games.
Yeah, it's also sort of an endurance test. How much can you take, right? Because your opponent has so much say over which cards you draw, and it's just, you don't want to let somebody just over and over say, yeah, I will allow you to have that card. You're like, thank you so much. At some point, you just scoop them up.
The Inventor's Fair Crucible lock, I think, makes that a little easier.
Yeah, I think so too. Also, now that he's got the third Codex Shredder going, in conjunction with the Lantern, now we're talking about even if you have 5 action cards on top of your library, you still don't win this game. The chances of that are so minute. You may just not want to let your opponent see what else you have in your deck for...
Yeah, I don't know if Manuel cares, because his deck is... Yeah, he assumes the Italian knows what's going on with his deck, but it's more like if you think there's going to be a time issue, it's also, there is a question of endurance. I mean, you're playing a long tournament. Like, do you want to spend another 20 minutes playing a game that you really can't win? Yeah,
now, interestingly here, though, Luis, I like what we see here. This is Alessandro Pitaro taking the Paulo Vitor Dama Rosa approach. He's pretty aggressive. He says, look, I could take this, from 99.5 to 99.9, but I'll take my 99.5% here and just kind of aggressively mill you to get the job done. And that... I've never seen that backfire on a Lantern player.
Yeah, it does not look like it's backfiring here either.
No.
Okay. No. Oh, si devo ancora stappare, ragazzi. Yeah, again 1. 12.
I gain 1 and go to 12, says Alessandro. And he's just got all the lock pieces in place.
Yeah, Academy Ruins means that even if one of his artifacts were to be destroyed, he could get it back. Though, of course, if the Ensnaring Bridge is destroyed, it's likely Manuel could finish the game in one shot. But I don't think in game 1, it does not seem like there's any solution to that.
Yeah, the only cards that come to mind from these type of decks are Cryptic Command, and I don't think that Manuel plays that card.
I think I can lose,
Yeah, and finally Manuel has said, okay, I got it. I've seen enough. You got this one, Alessandro. So once again, down in the feature match area, that's a clean sweep for the Italians in game 1s.
Wow.
And we saw that from the Belgian team last round as well. And we've seen some really dominant performances from these teams. It hasn't slowed up.
It's pretty funny that the Belgian decks and the Italian decks almost couldn't be more opposite. The Belgian has 3 fast linear decks, like Infect, Burn, and Goryo's Vengeance, whereas Italy has Ad Nauseam and Lantern as 2 of their 3 decks, which are not particularly fast. But the fact that all the Italians are up a game means that this could be still a fast match.
Well, let's pop in on that Affinity versus Infect. This is modern fans will have seen this matchup many times. This is Cesar Segovia playing Affinity versus Mattia Rizzi on Infect. That's Mattia right there, and there's Cesar. We're coming into game 2 versus these two players. As I mentioned before, Ritzy picked up that first game with Infect. Yeah, and this is a classic. I mean, this is one of the most classic at this point modern matchups here, the Infect versus
These
Infinity.
are the two most represented decks in this tournament.
Yeah, there you go.
It's an interesting hand from Cesar here. He's got a lot of mana, but not a lot of action. He besides the one Thoughtseize, he's got a Memnite and a Blinkmoth Nexus that can attack. So
that is not a lot.
This is the kind of hand that really wants to draw, a Cranial Plating or Master of Ethereum, something that can really get the game going. But it's disruptive, and it has, again, a lot of mana and a fast artifact count, so that's the reason that Caesar would have kept that.
Cesar has an interesting choice here. He can take a Pump Spell, or he can take the Glistener Elf. The problem is that Ritzy also has another Infect creature in his hand that he cannot take with that Inkmoth Nexus.
Inkmoth does pressure Mattea's mana a lot because it's a land itself, costs 1 to activate, so it's going to be a while before he can attack with that and play multiple pump spells. So taking Glistener Elf makes a lot of sense here.
Okay, that's what he's going to do.
Mattea deciding whether he wants to lead with Nexus with the intention of attacking with it on turn 2, or lead with like a fetch land so you can get a tapped Breeding Pool. Really the two main options there.
Yeah, he's going to go for the Nexus. He knows he doesn't have a lot of time against Affinity, though. This particular opening, not that powerful. Right now, Cesar has put up a total of 1 power on the board.
Well, Cesar just drew a card that's going to break this matchup wide open.
Oh, man. This comes in out of the sideboard for him. This is Gearper Ether Grid.
And that means that he can ping right now twice a turn once he's untapped, and can animate the Nexus. And that means he's got a recurring source of damage that can take out Infect creatures. So that's going to be really hard for Infect to beat unless Mattea sided in a way to kill it.
Yeah, and you're going to see right here the real problem for Mattia Ritzy, because if this was a standoff where it's like, you can't activate your Nexus, but I also can, I have to leave my stuff untapped, that would be one thing. But that's not the case here.
Nope.
That Ether Grid can go to the face, and if Mattia does nothing, then he's just going to start taking multiple damage per turn, and it adds up pretty quickly. 3 activations now in the bank.
Yeah, next turn.
Yikes.
Next turn, he'll be able to shoot 3 times, and it's going to be, like I said, unless Mattea draws one of his natural states, or his Verding Corruptor won't do it, but natural state could. He's just going to have a hard time sticking any creature, even with a pump spell, even with a Pendulum even getting shot. The thing is, it's also a discrete 1/1/1. It's not deal 3 at once, so 1 pump spell doesn't counter all 3 activations.
They're going to get in for 1 with Memnite.
Good attack there by Segovia, because he's got 4 artifacts left, so he can shoot twice now. This does maximize the amount of damage he can deal.
I mean, he could have just got in with that with the tapping the Memnite in the land anyway, right?
Next turn he'd be able to, yeah. But he has to animate the Nexus.
He has to
first.
animate the Nexus.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I would expect next turn that he's more likely to leave those back just out of safety, but this turn, it's a free point of damage.
Right. And that is going to be important here, because Mattia Ritzy is not under immense pressure life total wise, but he is under some type of inevitability from this Ether Grid. It wreaks havoc with this deck. All the creatures are 1 toughness. Ping you, ping you.
It's not even that slow of a clock.
Yeah, it does add up quite quickly, doesn't it? Ooh, cranial plating off the top is going to add an additional clock here as well. Certainly worth dumping some mana into that.
So Cesar could play cranial plating, equip, and attack, and still have 2 shots up, which is pretty good. He could also play super safe and just have 3 activations up and wait, but give Mattea like an extra turn most likely. Because he can shoot 3 times, putting Mattea down to 12. Next turn, equip plating, attack for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, not quite lethal. So it would be an extra turn, but having an extra shot means Matea needs an extra pump spell, and you might not want to risk Matea having some combination of like distortion strike, mutagenic growth, become immense, or some combination that gets by all that. It's going to be difficult either way, and Matea's not that close to that, but Cesar doesn't know that.
So the difference between leaving up 2 pings and 3 pings here is what they're discussing.
Yeah.
Well, and getting in for a big hit of damage.
Yeah, it's 2 pings or 3 pings and
no hit.
And if you do, so if 3 pings plus no attack, 3 activations of the grid, or 2 activations of the grid plus a pretty big hit with cranial plating on a Memnite or an Ornithopter.
Yeah. I think that they are in one of those positions where, you're not as much thinking about how to win the game, but how does this go horribly awry for us?
Right. And
they're going to play it safe, it looks like.
I like this play. There's just no reason to lose to like the right combination of 5 cards when you can force it to be like 6 cards, because that just makes it so much less likely.
Exponential,
Yeah.
Now, alternatively, we could see Matea Rizzi get lucky here and just top deck a removal or an answer, for the gear per ether grid. That would change this game dramatically.
It would certainly help. It's kind of unfortunate for Rizzi that even if he draws a natural state now and like goes to kill ether grid, if he gets, I guess he wouldn't get shot for the full amount because the Nexus is still there, but he could end up just dying to cranial plating before he can get anything going. Because Rizzi's hand is also just not that good. He's got a lot of lands.
He finds a blossoming defense off the top. Kind of interesting. It may have mattered here, actually. He's got Might of Volcrosa become immense, but he has a Pendlehaven that he's been saving, and he just drew Blossoming Defense as well. I guess he's a little bit mana crimped here, isn't he? Can't cast both of his pump spells.
And that's the problem with Inkmoth Nexus is, it's a fantastic card. It makes the deck, but it is a mana-intensive card, and when you're under pressure, which is very much the case this game, it's going to be difficult for Matea to have an Inkmoth plus enough pump spells and able to sequence things to the point where he gets around that ether grid.
Yeah, if Cesar would have attacked and if Matea had an extra mana, he could have done it, but he had 3 ways to react. But unfortunately, that is a long way off by modern standards.
Oh, yeah. And unfortunately for Matea, Cesar would kick things off by just blocking with Ornithopter, making it that much more difficult to really even make any progress.
Ornithopter on blocks, too. Yeah. It's brutal. Arcbound Ravager was the draw step there for Cesar. He decided to cast it.
I could actually see. It's possible to see. Yeah, if Cesar wanted to be very cautious, he could still not attack with the cranial plating, though that seems like it at that point you're giving Matea unneeded draw steps.
Yeah, that is the thing, of course, that you're weighing it out against by playing carefully and not losing to what Matea Rizzi has in hand. But if you let him have 3 additional draw steps, the contents of his hand is different. It just feels like there's no way out here for Rizzi. Yeah, it always feels like that with Infect, though, and then sometimes they just win.
Yeah, Infect is definitely like the deck that's the best at pulling out miracle wins, but I still think that this particular situation is not one where that's going to occur.
All right, there's a Vines of Vastwood off the top for Rizzi, and Cesar did not attack.
Part of it is that Cesar could shoot 3 times here and then just be lethal next turn anyway, so he doesn't actually need to attack, and being cautious makes a lot of sense.
Rizzi just feeling the pressure of that gear per ether grid. The good news for Rizzi is that he did win game 1, so if he does lose this game, he'll have another shot. Land go. Take 1, 2. Take 3. You're down to 8.
Once you get 2 artifacts together, they can, lob a shot, right? Like I guess you have to plug them into the grid or something. I'm not sure exactly what the mechanics are.
Technically works. Kind kind of cool though, going back and looking at Giriper Ether Grid. At the time it just was like, oh, this is kind of weird.
Yeah, just
now we know
a draft build around that doesn't quite get there.
Right.
But now it's actually a really good sideboard card in the Affinity deck. There's just multiple matchups where it's one of your better cards.
And this has to be the best of them, right?
Yeah, I believe that this is the matchup where you want it the most.
Okay, this Mem Knight's going to crack in with Cranial Plating and force the issue. Ritzy is going to be forced to activate his Inkmoth Nexus. Cesar can start firing at it. I mean, he could even just let this happen if he wants. Yeah, he's just going to let him block. Sure.
Yeah, Cesar is just not losing by doing this. So he's by blocking and just passing, or letting him block and just pass, he's forcing Matea to make the first move.
And Matea has to make multiple moves. That Cranial Plating, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8? Depending on what Cesar wants to do. It's +7, +0.
Yeah, so the Nexus is... It can get big enough. It can actually get bigger, but in the face of Ether Grid, that's just very unlikely.
Especially given that Ritzy's the one that has to kick off the festivities here. So he's going to say, okay, Pendelhaven.
And at this point, Cesar still wants to pass unless he wants to pick the fight right now. Because Pendelhaven
that's not enough.
Isn't enough to make it so Matea's creature survives. The Inkmoth Nexus will still die, but if you let Pendelhaven resolve, then you can't shoot down the Nexus in response to further pumps, so that is a reason to respond there if you wanted to.
It's kind of interesting here, too. I mean, even if Matea fires off a Become Immense here, he could still have his Inkmoth Nexus take 7, maybe even 8.
And then get
plus
shot for once.
And then just fire it off at the end just to finish it and force even another card out of Ritzy's hand just to keep it alive. Again, I keep looking at that Ornithopter now that you were talking about, too. Just keeping that back to block seems like something important.
And that Blinkmoth Nexus can also provide blocking duty as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Matea Ritzy. He's fighting the fight. I certainly respect that. Does not look like he's going to win it, though. Blossoming Defense. That's going to get another card in the graveyard for him here as well.
So
Blossoming Defense does mean that he doesn't get to finish it off with the Ether Grid, though.
Yeah, so now the Nexus is large and untargetable, but not large enough to survive this combat. And from Cesar's perspective, this is all fine.
This is a lot of work to kill a Mem Knight.
Matea traded 3 pump spells, or 2 pump spells and a Nexus, or 2 pump spells, a Pendelhaven activation to save the Nexus, but yes, to ultimately trade for a Mem Knight, which then next turn, if the Nexus wants to attack, the grid is still ready and waiting.
Yeah, there's also that Arcbound Ravager that's ready, willing to pick up the Cranial Plating and bash again.
And Cesar can tap one of his lands if he wants to re-equip Plating and still have 3 shots with the grid up. But by keeping them both untapped, he leaves it up to animate Blinkmoth Nexus.
Does Matea play Distortion Strike?
He does. He's only got 1 in his main deck and 1 in his sideboard.
Okay, because with Distortion Strike, maybe he could try to chain something together, but this is not looking good. There we go. Matea Ritzy's going to pack it in, and that means that Panama is on the board here. So that was Cesar Segovia picking up the first game win here for Team Panama. Affinity versus Infect, they're evened up, and they're going to go to Game 3. As far as our other matches, we've got Manuel Sukari playing Blue-Red Kiln Fiend. He's down a game to Alessandro Pitaro. And then we've got Saul Alvarado playing against Andrea Mengucci, who's also down a game there. Mengucci up with Ad Nauseum. And we're going to get a chance to see that again. And Andrea made it exciting for us in that first game. We'll see if it works out well for him again this time. Italy's been here before, especially Mengucci. He was on the team last year that won the World Magic Cup. He is the team captain this year as well, and he is definitely in his comfort zone. Now, he's not going to have to wait as long to find Ad Nauseam this time, is he, Luis?
No, he's got that, and he's got the Lotus, which is the most important card to have in your opening hand. Looks like he's missing an Angel's Grace, but depending on how close the game gets, he's got Spoils of the Vault to try and go fetch it.
Yeah, the card I want to see now on the other side for Sal Alvarado is, does he have a Thought-Knot Seer? Wow, so don't call it a comeback here, Luis. Manuel Sakari just won game 2 versus Alessandro Potaro. So the blue-red Kiln Fiend deck took one back from Lantern Control, and now we're all tied up on tables A and B and seeing how things go here on C. So Panama, not done yet.
No, not by a long shot. So it looks like Saul, has the Eldrazi Temple, but not the Thought-Knot Seer to go with it. We'll be seeing a Reality Smasher next turn, most likely, which by itself, a lone Reality Smasher is usually not enough to finish off Ad Nauseam before they get their combo.
Yeah, still no Angel's Grace, even though, even then, Andrea Mengucci is just going to go ahead and take a Pact of Negation.
In a turn or two, worst comes to worst, Andrea could use the Pact and then pay for it with the Lotus, but I don't think that that's generally a winning strategy. That's the kind of move that you do out of desperation.
Cavernous Souls for Alvarado is going to produce that Reality Smasher. Now that's not bad. Turn 3 Reality Smasher is going to really put the heat on Andrea Mengucci, but he does have a few turns. He looks like he's somehow Ad Nauseam flooded here,
Yeah,
Luis.
he's 3 copies of Ad Nauseam. Just not where you want to be. You can cast a mini Ad Nauseam to kick things off, but against that Reality Smasher, that seems like a dubious plan at best.
Right. He really wants to do it all at once. Apparently, Andrea also mulliganed this game, and his opening hand before also had 2 copies of Ad Nauseam. So it took a while to show up in game 1, but yeah, Ad Nauseam perhaps overseeing its welcome here in game 2.
Yeah, I think Andrea's getting sick of seeing it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not ad nausea, It just. All right,
I don't know what you mean.
Yeah. Again, Spellskite not a critical player here in this match. Has a little bit of utility. Again, that's Alessandro Casamenti, who's in the coach seat here, but also is kind of you said he's the Ad Nauseam player for the team.
Oh, he's been playing Ad Nauseam for years. The team built their decks with him being that deck already a lock. Like, we need him to play Ad Nauseam. Let's build out the other 2 decks around that. And Italy's very happy with it. All right, this is exciting.
So this is Spoils of the Vault. What's going to happen here, Luis?
So Andrea's going to name Angel's Grace and reveal cards until he hits Angel's Grace and lose 1 life for each card revealed right there. So,
he found it very quickly.
Yeah, that worked out really well for Andrea. I mean, you could just die to Spoils of the Vault.
Yeah.
Very easy. He was only at 9 life.
Wow, that was nice.
He was at 7 life, falling to 5.
And now he gets the Lotus Bloom off the stack.
And now he just wins.
And he's just got the combo. He just found another Ad Nauseam somehow. Well, he got those out of the way, didn't he? Crack the Lotus Bloom. Play Angel's Grace. Now he cannot lose the game. And here we go, Ad Nauseam, and he's just going to pick up his deck again. He's got the other 3 copies of Ad Nauseam still in his hand. And his hand looks a little different now than it did a second ago. That hand is now his entire library.
For anything. He also has a bunch of packs he can play. He's got Pact of Negation and Slaughter Pact, so he's going to be able to just make sure nothing.
Oh, how jealous are you of that hand? Look at it. Yeah. It's his whole deck. And here we go. We actually get to see some of this happen now. Before, he, as a courtesy, showed his opponent his deck, but there's that Lightning Storm. How does this end up actually finishing off Saul?
It starts by dealing 3 damage. Andrea discards a bunch of land to up the number of counters on it while it's on the stack. And since he's drawn his whole deck, he's able to just find enough lands to up the damage to lethal. Even if Saul has like a land or 2 lands in his hand to retarget Lightning Storm, Andrea's going to have enough lands to go back over the top because each land represents 2 damage.
25 to you.
Boom.
Any player may play this ability if Lightning Storm's on the stack. Saul's going to say, okay, well, show me. And you can see that Mengucci has him 1-for-1 on those lands. And he did it. Andrea Mengucci, with the help of Alessandro Casamenti, defeats his opponent, Saul Alvarado, here 2-0 and gives Italy the privileged position here of needing a game win to take down the round. Let's head back to table A. That is Cesar Segovia on Affinity versus Mattia Rizzi on Infect. We saw the end of this one just recently. with Giriper Ether Grid taking
As an
over
all-star.
that game, and we'll see if it can do it again here. Looks like both players are on 6 cards here, Luis.
And no blue mana. This hand would otherwise be somewhat solid for Ritzy. He's got double Natural State and Pendelhaven, but his other cards are 3 blue cards and no blue mana. With on a mold of 6 where he gets to scry, having 2 1-mana kill spells, this seems like a hand you could easily keep on 6.
He's got that scry. He has 2 natural states in his hand, which can help him for the real problem that he faced last time.
Yeah, it can kill the Ether Grid. It can also just kill anything, basically. So being able to slow down Cesar makes sense.
Oh, he's mulliganing and he looked.
Well, if you're going to mulligan, you might as well look.
No, that is not true, Luis.
I'm just so curious. I always look.
I actually had a chat with with Alexander Hain from Canada down in the feature after they finished their match. He said Shahar always looks. He said he just can't live with himself without looking at it.
You've got to know whether it would have worked out or not.
And then Alex said, well, there is an argument to be said for looking, because if you get a big enough sample size, you may find out that you were doing it wrong. And I said, yeah, you're going to have to show me a spreadsheet before I'm buying that argument. He just laughed.
I've got a spreadsheet where I keep track of this stuff.
That is so not true. It looks like Cesar has kept here.
Probably has more than 5 cards in his hand. It's pretty smart, given that Matea's got...
You like that strategy?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the right 5 cards from Infect can kill you, I think, still on turn 3. Definitely not on...
Yes.
Definitely by turn 3.
We actually saw Owen Turtenwald do that with plenty of extra cards in his hand. Okay, Mattia has found a 5 that he wants to keep, so hopefully we get a competitive game here. I'd love to see this one really come down to it. Okay, this looks decent. Blighted Agent.
Natural State.
Yeah. He put a card on the bottom. Did he only have 1 land there?
Saw a Breeding Pool.
Yeah, I saw the Breeding Pool.
Yeah, that is it.
Okay.
But
and go.
Cesar's hand is not particularly interactive. It's just got a bunch of cranial platings and creatures, which is a fine hand, but it's missing a way to interact. And of course, as I say that, he just immediately draws Galvanic Blast.
Yep.
Which is a very nice draw here.
Okay, Apostle's Blessing off the top could be good for Mattia Rizzi. The problem is mana, and he's missing his land drop. He's really just not going to be able to leave things up. Though he may be able to take out a cranial plating with the natural state here, and no, actually not. Cesar is going to think better of it and just going to get in for a couple of points of damage here and then play the cranial plating post-combat. He couldn't equip it anyway, so Mattia's going to take that thing down with natural state.
Kaboom.
And try to find a land. No.
Well, a 0-mana spell, Mutagenic Growth, means that even if Mattia does find a land, he's at least going to be able to play cards. But the second Galvanic Blast from Cesar is going to make this really hard for Mattia to win.
Yeah, he's got Metalcraft as well, so...
It actually could just be very fast as well. Like, not only is Cesar able to deploy cards and Mattia's not, Cesar's hand is going to lead to a really quick kill. Right now, Cranial Plating is +5/+0. So the Memnite attacks for 7 with the Signal Pest, and that's just going to, make sure Mattia just doesn't have a way back in this game.
Yeah, Mattia found a Vines of Vastwood. Again, these are all high-quality cards for his deck, but the inability to cast them is going to make it incredibly difficult for the Infect player. We have seen him have a tough time in both of these 2 games. Cesar Segovia really applying pressure this game. And here we go. Signal Pest trigger as well, says Cesar.
So, again, 5 artifacts can play men with 6/1, 7/1 off Signal Pest, and that's just lethal next turn combined with these Galvanic Blasts.
All right, there's a land off the top for Rizzi. Who's down to 9?
He's almost dead just to the Galvanic Blasts.
Right. Are we going to see end step Galvanic Blast you? Because that would present lethal.
End step Galvanic Blast.
Though now with the
Blighted Agent,
yeah, he could just take out the
attack
agent.
and then Galvanic Blast you.
Yeah. He's actually going upstairs with the Galvanic Blast. He didn't kill the Blighted Agent.
You can also just equip the Signal Past if you'd like.
Yes.
True, another Galvanic
She's
Blast.
another Galvanic Blast. So
Or you can just finish it with
he
style.
actually just has it with the 2 Galvanic Blasts here. So how about you just take 12 damage from burn spells over the last turn cycle, and that's going to do it. Cesar Segovia gives Panama that match. And it kind of had to come down to this, didn't it? We saw Italy get off to the quick start. Then we saw the comeback from Panama, and that leaves us with 1 match to decide this round. Let's get back in that middle table here. Blue-Red Kiln Fiend versus Lantern Control is going to decide who makes it into the top 8. Now, the losing team here will have another shot.
Yes.
But the winning team is in. A lot of pressure on both of these teams. You can see that we're in the very early stages of the game, just 1 turn underway with a Lantern of Insight from Alessandro Potaro.
It looks like Alessandro may have mulliganed there.
Wow, Manuel with
5?
no 1-drop.
Alessandro only has 5 cards in play after turn 1, 6 after turn 2. So, but look at this mulligan.
Whoa!
Turn 2 ensnaring
with
bridge.
the ensnaring bridge too. Unbelievable. He even has the jar to back it up. Oh my goodness. The only thing he needs here is a mill artifact, right? That's the one piece of the puzzle that he has not quite found.
Yes, Ghoul Caller's Bell, Pixis, or Codex Shredder will enable Alessandro to start using Lantern to create value. So taking a look at Manuel's deck, post-board he's got Shattering Spree and Hercule's Recall as anti-artifact cards, which is not a gigantic amount, but he's got a Shattering Spree in hand. So Shattering Spree can even get around Welding Jar. You can just replicate it and target the Ensnaring Bridge with multiple copies of the same Shattering Spree.
Does he have to do it right now, though? You see the top of the library for Portaro is an Inquisition of Kozilek.
That is, Lantern actually is backfiring here. It's providing Manuel with information he wouldn't have had otherwise that will likely impact his play because if he doesn't do it now, and he gets Shattering Spree Inquisition, he might end up in a spot where it's very difficult for him to ever kill that Ensnaring Bridge.
Now, he does need to find multiples, right? Another red mana source here to make it work.
Yeah, he's going to need another red mana source. And even when he does, it's not the end of the world. See, part of the problem here is that Academy Ruins on Alessandro's side means that if you spend your turn killing Ensnaring Bridge, Alessandro can just draw, Inquisition you, or just draw and say go, and then next turn Ruins back Bridge and just replay the bridge.
Ensnaring Bridge, really the hallmark card for the Lantern Control deck. I know that having the word Lantern in the title makes you think that that's what the deck's all about, but really,
it's a bridge deck.
Is the deck. Yeah, is the deck itself. All right, let's see what Manuel Sukari does. Is he going to Shattering Spree?
Oh, it looks like it.
Shattering Spree. Red sorcery with Replicate for red. Destroy target artifact. You can pay red basically to copy it as many times as you want. And ooh, easy there, Alessandro. So what happened is Manuel said, I'm going to target the Ensnaring Bridge with both of the Shattering
Yeah, and they're verifying where the targets are going, because if they're both going at Ensnaring Bridge, you certainly don't want to sacrifice Welding Jar. The question is, did he? How much? He feel like he dialed it back pretty quick.
I do too. Yeah, it's one of those touchy situations where have you actually done the thing? Because he did it kind of instinctually, but then realized, wait, there's 2 Shattering Sprees hitting this. Well, then the Welding Jar wouldn't actually save it. So this is going to be a situation where they're going to have to sort out if he had technically already sacrificed and used the ability from Welding Jar, or if it was a situation where he was going to, but didn't actually do it yet.
Well, the other thing that's tricky is that Manuel just going point Shattering Spree and Ensnaring Bridge technically means he hasn't announced where the other sprees are going, where the second copy is going.
I mean, he did it twice.
Yeah. So
yeah, I think that was him saying both. You can see that Portaro just said, okay, I'm just going to get my Ensnaring Bridge back, go.
Yep.
He just left everything the same except for put the bridge in his hand. So can you explain to us what happened there?
So Academy Ruins just has the ability of putting artifacts from a graveyard on top of your library, and Alessandro just did that during his upkeep, drew the bridge, and said go. So
right.
Academy Ruins is pretty powerful card. In any sort of long, slow game, it just gives you so much protection for all your artifacts. You haven't lived till you've Academy Runes Triskelavus.
That's where you went with that?
Oh, yeah.
I thought you were going to say Mindslaver.
Yeah. That just ends the game. The whole point is not to actually end the game.
You like to play with your food, huh?
Maybe just a little.
Will the first try 2, then after resolve you will.
Pyromancer is part of a sideboard plan, actually. They're in the sideboard, and they're a way to pressure on Alessandro. They might be partially there because the tokens can get under Ensnaring Bridge, though realistically the Lantern deck just has no cards in hand most of the time once it's cast Bridge.
Yeah, and that is actually the case here, though it's likely that there will be a one card stuck in hand for Portaro here as he's drawing an Inquisition and like to get that bridge back on the battlefield, I'm assuming as soon as he can. He just has not untapped his permanents.
Yeah, for 3 turns,
he's just tapped out.
They've just stayed tapped, which I think is very acceptable.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what he wanted to do. He's saving energy. And, you know, I have to say, Alessandro Portaro is still at 20 life. He has not yet found one of the mill artifacts, and those are going to be an important part of him actually winning this game. But he can feel relatively safe here that he can play the Blooming Marsh there. He can play the Inquisition and be on 0 cards again and just hide behind that Ensnaring Bridge.
He also has the option, and it costs you draw steps, of sacrificing Lantern to force Manuel to reshuffle and then Academy Runesing back Lantern. It's like the worst Lantern Codex Shredder you can imagine, but if Manuel's drawing like an Ancient Grudge or a Hercule's Recall or something along those lines, then that could be tough. Though this particular build of the blue-red deck chooses to use Shattering Spray.
He has 2 of them in the sideboard, is that correct?
2 sprees and 1 Hercule's Recall in terms of artifact interaction. And one of the sprees, as we saw, is already down, so does not leave a whole lot of ways to get rid of that Ensnaring Bridge. And Alessandro, I think, is never going to have cards in hand unless he wants them to be there.
Right. Yeah, the thing I'm paying the most attention to from Portaro is, does he find a Codex Shredder? Does he find a Ghoul Caller spell?
That's the last card he's missing.
In the meantime, Sukari has had some time.
Oh, he's spinning his wheels very quickly. Metamorphose, Serum Visions, generating tokens, drawing cards, and the problem and part of how this Lantern deck is built is just so few cards Manuel can draw are actually relevant to the game. Like drawing mutagenic growths and other creatures, Temur Battle Rages, they just don't do that much because nothing's going to get to attack in a turn here.
Oh, this is kind of interesting. He is going to sneak this through because he's going to attack. Right now, with 1 card in hand for Portaro, there's one of those elementals that's not summoning sick that should be able to attack through the bridge.
Yeah, and then he can actually mutagenic growth
bunch of pump spells
if he wants and deal a cool 6.
He declined it. Okay. Land off the top. Let's see what that next card's going to be. Another land. He's just going to play it, Inquisition you. He's going to see a Bedlam Reveler, Lightning Bolt, a pair of Temur Battle Rages, and that mutagenic growth that you and I were just talking about. Those are not the tools.
No, and Bedlam Reveler is going to let Manuel see a bunch of new cards this turn, but again, like looking at his deck, if he doesn't find one of those anti-artifact cards, it's going to be really difficult for him to really get out of this Ensnaring Bridge lock.
17.
And Alessandro's way too high for any sort of like string bolts together nonsense plan to work.
So he'll get 3 fresh cards from the Reveler. What if he does find a way to get rid of the bridge?
Well,
still can't kill him in 1 shot from this point.
He can't kill Alessandro in 1 shot, and if Alessandro has mana up, he can Academy Runes end of turn, like right now. But if he catches Alessandro tapped out, kills bridge, attacks for like 10, next turn Alessandro can't put bridge on pack because he'll die. So that is a way to get there, but it's going to be difficult.
Okay, well, it all starts with that Bedlam Reveler. So let's see what Sukari finds.
He's going to be able to make a giant army of tokens.
Yeah. Okay, discard your hand.
And Alessandro will be able to see what cards are drawn here because they're drawn one at a time. So the lantern will like reveal the cards as they're drawn.
That's always tricky to know which ones you get to see.
Oh, there's the Hercules recall.
Oh, he found the recall.
That means Alessandro has a 1-turn window to find something here. Otherwise, he gets Hercule recall and attacked with Bedlam Ruler for 4, Pyramids for 8 plus the 4 tokens. That's not quite enough, but Manuel's got a few turns, so he can wait until he has lethal and then play the Hercules. And I guess Mutagenic Growth adds 3 because the Bedlam Reveler's prowess, so it's possible that Manuel could get there, but if he doesn't, he's not going to want to cast a non-lethal Hercules recall.
But this is going to force Alessandro Potaro to use his lantern. He doesn't want to draw that swamp.
No, he knows he's dead if he draws the swamp.
So what does he need to find here?
Piece of hand disruption to make Manuel discard it, and that would be the cleanest way.
And if he doesn't, is Panama going to be in the top 8? Like, is that what we're looking at here?
Well, if he doesn't, then it looks like that Panama is going to lock up their spot and give Italy the opportunity to play for it in the last round, but not have locked it up.
Man, Hercules recall.
Oh, that's not that. I thought that was an Inquisition. No, the Ancient Stirring's not quite as effective.
Wanted. Yeah. Alessandro Potaro from Italy at 19 life, just hiding behind an ensnaring bridge. But a real army has been formed by Manuel Sukari on the other side. And it looks like it's a Codex Shredder. It's the only thing that Potaro can come up with.
So currently, Manuel's at 11 damage. Every spell he casts gives him 1 more because of Bedlam Riveler having prowess. So Hercules Recall brings him to 12. Mutagenic Growth adds +3. That's 15. So he's getting close. There's a couple spells that can bridge that gap, but you really can't cast a non-lethal Hercules or you run the risk of getting locked under bridge again.
Does Potaro have enough mana, though, to actually make that work?
I believe so, because he can pay 3 for bridge, play Mox Opal, Welding Jar, and then Codex Shredder. So if he draws a land, he goes back to 0 cards, or draws a 0-mana artifact.
Okay, yeah.
He can miss, technically.
Yeah, that's the thing I was wondering, is if he can hit him for enough but still have lethal with the 1/1s.
He could put...
Sounds risky to me.
Alessandro in a position where, if he draws any land, or anything but land, or a 1/1... land or a 0-mana card, he loses, but that is riskier than waiting a turn and having the near guaranteed win.
Right. So Manuel's job here then is to assemble what he knows will be lethal, fire off the Hercules, and then get the job done. Does that mean that Potaro gets another draw step, though?
It's possible. It depends on if Manuel found any additional spells.
Right.
Assuming he did not, he could put Potaro on having a land or a 0 or dying, but he's going to win more. Or Manuel's going to win more games by passing and just Herculesing on the next turn, because then it's just an overwhelming amount of damage.
Right. You can see a Kiln Fiend at the front of Manuel Sukari's hand as well.
Yeah, and having a Kiln Fiend in play, of course, would make this quite lethal. All right, here's
he's going
Hercules
for the Hercules Recall right now. Hercules Recall, very, very simple. Return all artifacts target player owns to his or her hand. He's going to use the Codex Shredder in response.
He would have drawn that Inquisition.
Oh, so brutal. Okay, all the artifacts go up. Trigger prowess. This is going to be a massive attack, but we don't think it's lethal.
Unless there's tokens that we're not seeing off screen.
Yeah.
That's 5 from the Bedlam Reveler, 9 off the Pyramids, so 13 damage. Mutagenic Growth essentially adds 3 damage. That's 16 damage.
Puts you to 3. Maybe he's got a lightning bolt now.
Well, it puts Alessandro to dead bolt at any point, and it means that if Alessandro can't play all his cards, he does die. And also, killing Glimmervoid, actually, as one of the players picks up Glimmervoid, means that, Alessandro just has to draw a land or a Mox Opal.
Is Panama going to advance to the top 8? Let's see what Alessandro Potaro has. He drew a Lantern of Insight, Luis. That's not good enough.
No, he can play 2 0-mana artifacts. He can play Lantern, but he can't replay Bridge.
Yeah, he's showing his teammates, and he can't do it, and extends the hand, and that is Panama working their way through the top 8. They had one of the toughest teams to go through. Our defending champions, Italy, they have dispatched them, and are going to make them play a win in next round for top 8. It looked so good at the beginning with all 3 players from Italy taking their game ones, but Panama was not to be dispatched so easily, and now they're into the top 8. Congratulations to Team Panama.
Yeah, very well done.
Wow, great stuff down there. And you can get a sense for the level of drama that we're going to be bringing you as we work our way through. Next round's going to be even more intense because no matter what, it's win or go home. Here, again, Italy, now they have to regroup, go get a glass of water and say, okay, boys, we need to focus in and come in to this last round ready to go, not let this one bother us. In the meantime, Panama's like, where are the sandwiches?
They get a round off.
Yeah, so they get a chance to go hang. And like I said, that's what it's going to be like in this last round because of pool play. I love it. It's very simple. You win two of the 3 rounds, and you're into the top 8. Panama did it the easy way by winning the first 2. Italy, maybe they will, maybe they won't in that last round, but that's what we're going to be keeping our eye on as we move forward and keep you updated to your teams at home for everybody watching around the world. And of course, we're going to have Rich Hagan do that in just a minute, but we'll be back right after these messages.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the news desk. There is 1 round of the World Magic Cup to go here on day 2. That means we are down to exactly 12 teams. But which 12 teams are they? Let's find out. Let's look at the pools. Here we go with Pool A. So this is Belgium, Ukraine, the Dominican Republic and Spain. So we have our first member of the top 8. It is Team Belgium. Jerome Baston, the Viren brothers and Branko Neerink, they are through by virtue of beating Spain and Ukraine. Spain are done. They are out. And Ukraine and the Dominican Republic, they will face off in Pool A. One of them will join Belgium in the top 8. The loser of Ukraine, Dominican Republic, their journey in the World Magic Cup ends after our final round today. What about Pool B? Let's take a look. This was Germany, Italy, Bulgaria and Panama. And holy wow, gonna be honest, Panama advances, not 2 words I expected to tell you deep on Saturday night. Phenomenal performance by the Panamanian team. They have beaten Germany, one of the most historic Magic nations. They have beaten the defending champions, Italy, to advance to the top 8. Panama, we see you tomorrow. We salute you right now. But what does that mean? Well, Bulgaria are out because they've lost twice to Italy and Germany. And now Germany will face Italy. Winner stays on, loser goes home. My goodness, here's Pool C. United States are done. They lost to Macedonia and then they lost to Team Australia. So the journey ends here for Owen Turtenwald and the team there. Great job by them to reach this stage, but they don't quite make it in to the Sunday showdown. What does that mean? Well, Belarus are the big winners here in Pool C. They are in the top 8 right now. Australia face Macedonia for a slot in the top 8. And what about Pool D? Let's show you that. This is Finland, Greece, Malaysia and Lithuania. The Lithuanians with Gdenis Vidigiris and co, they lost out to Malaysia this round, so Malaysia stay alive. Finland are through 2-0, so they are into the top 8, and Greece will face Malaysia in the last round. So Ukraine against Dominican Republic, Germany against Italy, Macedonia, Australia, and Malaysia, Greece. Those are going to be the 4 matches that make up the final round here. So what about Team Australia? They're still going. They're on the verge of a match against Macedonia. Let's hear from Team Australia, David Mines and co. Here's Brian David Marshall.
Here with Australian national champion David Mines. David, introduce us to the team before I ask you about that crazy last match.
Yeah, so we've got Jim Wilkes here from Canberra, Ryan Kubert from Melbourne, and Gary Lau from Sydney.
How have these guys acquitted themselves at this level so far this weekend?
Yeah, it's been really good. Ryan and I have actually tested before together for Pro Tour Madrid, and Jim and I have seen each other around all the Australian tournaments. And Gary's sort of our wild card, but he's been brilliant the whole weekend. A great coach. So.
An Australian wild card seems very scary to me.
Exactly. Yeah, way out from the sides. We're working this.
So tell us, this day 2 has been quite a minefield for teams here, and you guys have faced off against some pretty impressive competition. Tell us how your day's gone leading up to that last round.
Yeah, well, we had a bye this morning in the first round, and we're in the pod with Canada. So we 2-0'd that first pod, beating Canada, and then we came into the second pod, lost our first round, just played against the US for a win-in to stay in the tournament, and we just scraped through in the last couple of seconds there. So it was really tight. Yeah.
And so now that means you're going to be playing in the last round against Macedonia for a shot at the top 8, as we see a member of the Macedonian team giving us a wave as he walks by.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, they're scouting your interview technique.
So yeah, we played Macedonia this morning as well. So we won that round, so hopefully we can run it back and get ourselves in the top 8.
All right, what would it mean for Australia to see you guys playing on Sunday?
Yeah, it'd be amazing. I mean, I think we're totally seen as the underdogs of the field of what's left now. And I think Australia, like we said, Australian Magic's really come along this year, and I think we'd really like to, to get ourselves onto the world stage. So, yeah.
All right. They're looking to get to the world stage, Rich. Team Australia here from the floor at the World Magic Cup.
Thanks very much, Brian David Marshall. Well, it's Deck Tech time here once again.